right now. I will begin the conversation, and I will turn it over to Andrea that provides the cue to begin. Just give me a few minutes so that we can get the Facebook Live ready. Great. All right, everyone, we are live. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, early evening for this important conversation on the federal legislation, proposed federal and state legislation and its potential impact on urban communities. This is the third in a series of workshops that the Urban League of Philadelphia has led, where we focus on legislation on both a city, state, and now a federal level. And how do we as African Americans internalize and analyze all of these potential proposals to ensure that we are supporting our families and moving our communities forward. Before we begin, want to quickly acknowledge partners that helped to promote this event to their community. We want to thank the PA Youth Vote, the NAACP State Conference, Greater Norristown NAACP, the Road Chapter Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pennsylvania Chapter, the African American Chamber of Commerce, Heart of the City Radio, Central Pennsylvania Successful Dreams Incorporated, Millennial Juneteenth, and Project Matters. For those of you watching us on Facebook, we encourage you to join the conversation in the video feed, post your questions there. If we will do our best to entertain those questions towards the end. At this time, we have a dynamic group of speakers, some individuals, all that you are accustomed to and have engaged with. We are excited to have Senator Casey join us, Congressman Dwight Evans, Senator Vincent Hughes, and Erin Wilson from the White House to all share their perspective on what we've seen last week when we saw, not just last week, but also previously different plans that were proposed and implemented. We currently have the American Rescue Plan. We heard information on the American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan. And we also have a Governor Wolf who has proposed a budget. And we want to have this conversation as to how do all these plans intersect? How do all these plans connect? And more importantly, what do these plans mean for us as African Americans? So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea Custis, President and CEO of the Urban League, who will begin the conversation with our speakers.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you so much. And thank you to all four of you for showing up and speaking out. The purpose of this is to make sure that we educate the community at large, especially the Black community. So thank you so much. Erin, why don't I start with you? I think the last time we spoke, we were on the radio with Senator Hughes, I think, and I think it was so much fun. I don't think I can fulfill that this afternoon, but I will certainly try. So why don't we start with you? You've been on the campaign trail with President Biden everywhere. I heard you and Congressman Evans talk about that earlier. Now you are the, wow, let me make sure I have this, the deputy director. Let me say that again. The deputy director of political strategy and outreach. So we've seen several plans, right? The American Rescue Plan, the American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan. Tell me from the White House, what is your perspective on how that relates to the Black community?
Absolutely, I'm more than happy to do that, but I want to just start by saying it is a privilege to join you again today. And to reconnect. And I am grateful for the opportunity to join this tremendous group of leaders and to talk to the community of Philadelphia about the impacts of President Biden's agenda as we look not only towards where we are at this moment in time, but also how we continue to move forward. And I'd like to not only thank the Urban League for being such a strong partner, but of course the delegation and our state and local leaders such as Senator Hughes, Congressman Evans, and Senator Casey, many of whom have been stood along by my side and the president's side as we worked over the last 2 years on this road to take back the White House. So we are thrilled to have been able to hit the ground running And I'll remind folks that on the first day in office, President Biden signed an executive order directing the whole of the federal government to advance equity and racial justice. When we think through the various agenda items within this administration, we are constantly looking at them within the lens of how is this advancing racial equity and justice moving forward. And we're thrilled to have 3 incredibly strong pieces of legislation that we feel really reflects that. Now, the first is, of course, the passage of the American Rescue Plan, which really represents at its core changes that we need to immediately make right now for our economy to bounce back and to help with the challenges and struggles that everyday Americans are facing every day as a result of this pandemic. And then we look towards the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan as how do we extend those benefits and how do we get Americans back to work and how do we keep the economic growth within the rebounding economy. So when we look at the American Rescue Plan, we know that, and these are statistics that I know folks know, 13% of the US population is African American, but we represent 24% of age-adjusted COVID deaths. We know that Black families also have a higher than average unemployment rates and economic challenges associated with the pandemic. And so the purpose of the American Rescue Plan is to provide immediate relief for hard-hit families, Black families, and small bridges, and to build a bridge towards economic recovery. Now, how are we doing that? One of the most significant pieces of that is, of course, our national vaccination program. Hot off the press just today, the President Biden announced that we are going to have a goal of increasing 70% of the adult population to have received 1 vaccination shot by the 4th of July. How are we doing that? A big piece of how we're doing that is making sure that we are creating vaccination opportunities in communities, in smaller pop-up mobile locations. We want to be able to go where people are themselves with a focus on some of the hardest to reach individuals. We're going to, just today, we've announced that we are ready to deploy the first of 2 rounds of funding for community-based organizations to hire and mobilize community outreach workers, community health reach workers, social specialists, who are all designated to help increase vaccine access in the hardest hit and highest risk communities. Because we know that the most effective messengers and the most effective individuals to connect with communities of color are people that live there, that know those communities, that recognize the unique ways in which that outreach should be done and conducted. And we think about some of the different ways this pandemic has impacted Black families. Specifically, we know that 1 in 5 Black households are struggling with food insufficiency. 1 in 3 Black renters have fallen behind in payment. The American Rescue Plan provides additional assistance to help struggling homeowners with their mortgage payments, utility costs through the Homeowners Assistance Funds. And we increased the value of SNAP benefits by 15% through September 2021. And of course, we've been able to give 85% of Americans stimulus checks to help address the day-to-day challenges that they are uniquely facing. So we look back at the first 100 days, we see progress that we are making through immediate assistance through the American Rescue Plan. And then we have our American Jobs Plans and the American Families Plan. The American Families Plan, when we talk about equity, we look at the consequences of decades of disinvestment in American physical infrastructure that have fallen most heavily on communities of color. And we look at the impacts of pollution and the climate crisis that's disproportionately threatened the lives of Americans of color. At its highest levels, the American Jobs Plan aims to create millions of good paying jobs and new training programs, invest in funds to modernize and repair highways, bridges, transit, expand internet, broadband across the country, invest in our schools' infrastructures and in facilities for veterans, seniors, and children. And when we look at it also within the lens of equity, we have to think about how are we investing in an equitable workforce development and jobs training program. We know that 1 in 10 Black workers, again, have faced unemployment during the COVID crisis. And that as more Americans rejoin the workforce, they're seeking out new opportunities and there's a greater need for skills development. So we invest $100 billion in workforce development training programs. We talk quite a bit about supporting a pathway to employment for returning citizens and investing in job creation and job trainings, particularly for formerly incarcerated individuals. And a really unique piece of the jobs plan that has been heavily applauded is also a huge investment that we're making in violence, community-based and evidence-based community violence interventions. We know that community violence disrupts employment and prevents a community's economic development. Gun violence kills almost 40,000 people annually and injures twice as many and disproportionately affects Black and Brown communities. And we invest $5 billion over 8 years in evidence-based community violence intervention programs. And these are just a few of the pieces. When we think about equity, we also think about it in terms of advancing racial justice through America's transportation system. We know that communities of color are more than twice as likely to rely on public transportation. So we double the federal investment in public transportation. And when we look at the American Families Plan, we know that the American Jobs Plan addresses putting people to work and the infrastructure challenges that face America. The American Families Plan works to extend and build upon provisions of the American Rescue Plan to lift more than 10 million people out of poverty in 2022. And this means a 29% reduction in Black poverty and as much as a 47% reduction in poverty amongst children. This plan seeks to lower healthcare costs, provide universal access to preschool for 3 and 4 year olds, comprehensive paid family and medical leave. It offers a free 2-year community college to all Americans. Provides up to $1,400 in additional assistance to low-income students by increasing Pell Grants. We know that nearly 60% of Black students depend on Pell Grants to help pay for their college, for college. Now, Andrea, I could talk quite a bit. I could talk for an hour about each of these bills unto themselves, but they together reflect our agenda, not only on what we immediately need, but how we move forward. And as we looked at last week, we saw that we were at the 100 mark of this administration, and we're incredibly proud of what we've accomplished, but we know that we have a lot more work to do. And one of the things that I'll close on is, as we look back to our initial EO, which I think is executive order, which I think is historic, having been signed on the first day of this administration, the president notes that our country faces converging economic, health, and climate crises that have exposed exacerbated inequalities, and a historic movement for justice has highlighted the unbearable human cost of systematic racism.
Yes.
Our nation deserves an ambitious, whole of government equity agenda that matches the scale of these opportunities and the challenges we face. That was signed on the first day of this administration. I think you can see those sentiments throughout each of these huge pieces of legislation and our priorities, and these will remain tenets of this administration as we move forward. So I thank you for having me. I thank the delegation and all of our tremendous leaders that are on this call for your support. And I look forward to helping to continue to lift communities in the city of Philadelphia and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through the accomplishments and the shared goals of our administration.
Thank you. Aaron, I got so many phone calls the day that President Biden called out systemic racism, and all of my friends had said this is the first president that said it and called it out. So he made history on that day. So thank you for your comments. I'm going to move to Senator Casey. Senator Casey, you have a strong reputation in supporting urban communities throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You have a deep history in that, and you've done great things. So when you look at what's coming out of the White House, when you look at these plans and you look just at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, what do you think will have a measurable impact on Black communities throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Well, Andrea, first let me thank you for this opportunity and to thank the Urban League and to thank you, Andrea, personally for your leadership and Thomas for his work in getting us started today. And I'm privileged and honored to be joined by United States Representative Dwight Evans and State Senator Vincent Hughes, two public servants I've known a long time. And they're so dedicated to all the issues that we're talking about and all the issues that Aaron Wilson just outlined. I'll try to highlight some of those same issues, but maybe add one or two. But let me start as well by commending and saluting Aaron Wilson for her great work now at the White House, and then prior to that for the better part of 2 full years, I guess it was, working with then candidate Joe Biden to help him win. And as you remember, when he started out, when Aaron Wilson signed on to his team, there weren't many people betting on him, but Aaron did. And she knew that we had to change not just the presidency, but had to change the course of our work in terms of policy to lift up families, and especially to lift up so many families have been left out. And of course, a huge percentage of those left out in policy over a long time have been Black families. So we're really proud of Aaron Wilson. I worked with her for years, and you know, she's a Penn graduate, but as she just showed us earlier, she's got a Temple coffee mug on her desk, so she never forgets her roots in Philly. But I wanted to highlight just a couple of things. Aaron mentioned the 3 proposals. One is now enacted into law. You could describe them as with 3 words: rescue, jobs, and families. They're the 3 initiatives. One is law, rescue is law. And that had to be done quickly because there is a sense of urgency when you consider what Aaron just made reference to. Black Americans comprising about 13% of the population, but almost double that in terms of the number of COVID-19 deaths, high case numbers, and terrible data regarding the threat that this virus posed to Black Americans. So we had to move quickly to appropriate billions, tens of billions of dollars just for vaccination, just for public health, just for the direct impact on COVID-19. The good news is you've got Democrats leading the way and the president leading us and Vice President Harris leading us. And by the way, we couldn't get the rescue plan done without her vote, by the way. So that's another reason why I'm grateful that so many people helped us win, but helped us also govern. And when she cast that deciding vote to move the bill forward, the next vote was just to approve it. And once we did that, we had the ability to not just implement a rescue plan generally, but to do 3 big things. Number one is move forward on vaccinations. So being able to get 220 million vaccinations done. Now we have the resources to continue that in terms of vaccinations. 2, it allowed us to invest new dollars in schools so we could open schools safely. And now the administration can say proudly that more than half of the schools in the country, K through 12, are opened, or half of the schools in terms of physically opening. I know teachers and educators have been working for a long time educating children virtually. Now more than half are physically opened across the country. And third, if you describe the rescue plan as I do by 3 words: vaccination, schools, and people, wow, that people part is huge. Aaron described so many features of the bill. I'll focus on one category of Americans, children, and in particular Black children. All across the country will benefit from, for example, the great expansion, the historic expansion of the child tax credit. Give you an example of what that means for Pennsylvania. 90% of Pennsylvania children will benefit from that expansion. So many children in working families all across the Commonwealth and across the country will benefit from the earned income tax credit expansion. And thirdly, the third tax credit that's vital and important here is the child and dependent care tax credit. If you want to shorten that, it's really just the child care credit. That will affect 250,000 families in Pennsylvania, for example, almost 7 million nationwide. So when you just consider the tax credits that benefit children and families, the food assistance that Aaron talked about, SNAP, the WIC program, the Women, Infants, and Children's program, when you consider all the direct checks to families, all of that help allows us to help those families in this time of peril when we want to try to rescue people from the grip of this pandemic and the economic trauma. But also, it allows us to begin to make investments we should have made a long time ago. I'll mention one. because this has relevance to the rescue plan, but also has relevance to the next item on our agenda, the jobs plan. And that's home and community-based services. Now, a lot of Americans said, well, what does all that mean? They don't understand what we're talking about. But I think they get it when they think about their own families. Home care. We want to provide more options. Folks don't have to exercise this option, but they ought to have the full opportunity to choose, if they want, to have care in the home or in the community if their loved one is a senior or a person with a disability. Can't do that now very much. You're very much limited because the states are limited because there's a cap on the Medicaid dollars for these services. We've got 800,000, and this is a low number. I think it's a lot higher than that, 800,000 Americans who are on waiting lists. And guess what? The people that are providing that important work or services, I should say, in care are folks who are making $12 an hour, only $12 an hour to provide this essential care and services to seniors and people with disabilities. Once again, who are the people doing this important heroic work, this noble caregiving work? They are low-income women of color, mostly, all across the country. We need to lift them up and pay them more, provide more benefits, and yes, allow them to join a union. Most of them can't do that now because we haven't invested the dollars. So I don't want to invest just a couple of billion in home and community-based services. We did that in more than that in the rescue plan, 12.7 billion. But in the jobs plan, that legislation we're just writing now, that plan calls for $400 billion in home and community-based services. And we can do three things: help seniors, help people with disabilities, and lift up that workforce, that caregiving workforce. We claim we care about these Americans, and yet the noble, hardworking folks who provide that care are being paid $12 an hour. That's not America. That's not who we are. We should lift them up and give them an opportunity to be paid at a level that's commensurate with the value we claim to place upon their work. And for a lot of families, this care, these services is essential. I'm all for the bridge building components of the jobs plan the president outlined, whether it's bridges or broadband or water or sewer or transit, and go down the list of all the investments we have to make. But I also want to make sure that we don't just provide a physical bridge for people to get to work every day, that we provide the bridge to work for a lot of women, mostly women in our society, who cannot get to work because they don't have the benefit, their family doesn't have the benefit of home and community-based services. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop. The families plan, the proposal by the president, which we still have to write and then legislate on, that's among the most exciting pieces of legislation I have ever seen in my entire life. If I served in the United States Senate for 150 years, I might not see a bill this good. And the reason I say it's a really good bill is because it will invest in those families, especially families in communities of color who have been left out of the benefits provided by the tax code. That federal tax code has been rigged for 40 years, 4 decades, that left out a lot of Black families, left out a lot of working families across the country, Black or white, just sidelined because they were too busy over 40 years giving big corporations and extraordinarily wealthy Americans break after break after break. It's almost gluttonous what big corporations and the extreme or the most wealthy Americans have received. It's about time that families who've been left out get more than their share of the benefits. But here's what families does. It allows us to have pre-kindergarten education for the first time at the federal level. It allows us 2 more years of community college. It allows us to invest in families in ways that we haven't seen in recent American history. So on rescue, on jobs, and on families, we've got some work done, but we got a long way to go, and we're going to need your help. So thanks for allowing us to be part of this discussion.
Thank you, Senator Casey. And I have to tell you, I love that picture right here that says, "I can't vote, but you can." That is very precious. I love that. I kept watching it the whole time. Thank you so much for always caring about the people. You always put the people first, always. Congressman Evans, if I can move to you, similar question as Senator Casey. When I look at you, what I see always is an advocate for the underserved. You are always out in the communities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Your reputation is that. I would also say to you, once an urban leaguer, always an urban leaguer. You have that in your DNA. So what I would like to know from you, and I'd like you to zero in on the Philadelphia region, because we have a lot of folks from Philadelphia that will be looking at this. When you look at everything we've talked about, what do you believe in your heart and in your head about what is going to be a measurable impact on the Black community in Philadelphia?
Andrea, first I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak. And as you say, once an urban leaguer, always an urban leaguer. Matter of fact, this is the first place I started working for the Philadelphia Urban League, and I really enjoyed that. I also want to say about what the senator said, Senator Casey said about Aaron Wilson. You couldn't have a better person representing the interests, not just of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but the people of this nation. And as you heard, I congratulate her for being a part of this. And Senator Casey, who I've known a long time, you really go back. I mean, we go way back. I mean, in starting, various experiences and positions, and he has shown the kind of leadership that is necessary for this entire state and nation. And I thank him for that. And Senator Hughes, doing what he does on the state level is a real plus. And you're going to hear him in a minute, because I know he's going to have some excitement, like Stop His Virus. Him and his wife have done a great job on that. This is, I congratulate you for doing this, because this is what I call meeting the moment. Meeting the moment. The president and the vice president are doing just that. You couldn't have two more significant people in meeting that challenge. And when you think about it, and you heard obviously Senator Casey and Aaron Wilson here, we might as well get an apartment for the president and the vice president in Pennsylvania. January the 20th is when he was sworn in. And he just hit about 100 days. He was just in Delaware County about 2 weeks ago. He was in the city of Philadelphia at Amtrak on Friday. And I'll talk about that. The William H. Gray 30th Street. And he was there talking about the significance of Amtrak, because transportation is directly connected to the economics, and how important Amtrak is to the city of Philadelphia, to the region, and to the nation. There's 18,000 employees that work for Amtrak, and they affect an awful lot of people. And that transportation is extremely significant. And it's not an accident that he was in the great city of Pittsburgh announcing the American Jobs Act. It's not an accident in the value, because he was out there announcing, so he really understands Pennsylvania. Now, understand the value in Delaware County and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and understanding, and it's only 100 days. And he's been a lot across this state and touching it. I smile about that, and we all can, because we have never seen anything like that with the leadership that he has provided. So in a case like Philadelphia, which has a poverty number between 23 and 24%,
right,
some great tools are in the toolbox. Two of the greatest tools is one, earned income tax credit. Second tool is the child tax credit. Those two tools will make drastic reduction in poverty. Those two tools in the toolbox. And we hope to make them permanent. Those are something that will help people tremendously, those two tools. You heard talk about the economic stimulus program and what that meant, the unemployment, a plan, the funding for transit, mass transit, and what SEPTA means to this region. SEPTA is the largest transit system in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Of the 70 systems we have, SEPTA is the largest, and what it means to people, not just in Philadelphia, but all throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And in the new initiative, you sort of heard Senator Casey talk about when he talked about the job, he talks about community college. We have 14 community colleges in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And the largest one is in the city of Philadelphia. Understand the community college, what community college means. That is in there. So it's no accident that this president and vice president truly understands this state, understands this city. You know, I'm proud that when the vice president and then the president walked along Ogontz Avenue, I can't say many people, Vincent, Senator Case, Aaron, have walked there. I can't tell you more people who understands the issues you're talking about. So when you talk about the vaccination and the mass shots in the arms and the approach that they're taking, very important. When you talk about transportation, talk about SEPTA and Amtrak, the value of what that means. When you talk about education and what education means, and the city of Philadelphia, there would be no way the city would be able to do what it does without the investment of dollars in the city of Philadelphia, which means here. So when you talk about homelessness and affordable housing and the dollars that are available, and when you talk about healthcare, those dollars that make a difference. All of these things, housing, healthcare, transportation, all of them are interconnected. But the main thing I want you to forget is leadership. The leadership that he and the vice president are providing. That is, you have two adults in the White House who understand what it is and where we are, and know that we have some challenging times, but know that we must be brought together. He understands. He is a president and a vice president know that only through unity can we deal and confront the challenges that we have. So I'll share with you, and I've watched him closely through the campaign. I've watched him in action, that he has set a tone that I don't think we have seen in an awful long time. He understands what it means to make a difference in America. He understands to have people not bet against America. He understands the importance in terms of what's happening in the African-American community and the Latino community by the executive orders. He understands that violence is an epidemic, and he has stated that in the Rose Garden. He stood up and he stated that very clearly. So he's trying to help us deal with this problem. You have a person not afraid of the city of Philadelphia and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that we, all of us, Senator Casey, Senator Hughes, along with Aaron, must work together to make a difference. And I'm proud to be a part of this team. I can say to you very sincerely, Adrian, that this is a time like I've never seen before in my life. That's why I started off talking about meeting the moment. That's just what he's done. He's met the moment. And he understands the significance of meeting this moment. So I'm glad to be a part of this today, talking to you about the challenge you have, maybe housing, maybe transportation, maybe education. He understands all of it. He stated very, ideally, he would love for it to be bipartisan. In an ideal situation, he would love for it to be bipartisan. The fact of the matter is, everybody would love for it to be bipartisan. We recognize that we must do this together. But the key thing is, it's going to be done. Right. It's going to be done. He's been very, very clear about that. He stated that when he was at the 50th anniversary of Amtrak on Friday, and the importance of mass transit and Amtrak to this nation. Amtrak has been around since 1971, 50 years. and understand what that does for people in the Black community, but all communities. You need that trend. When you talk about connected to the economy, if you look at the growth that has occurred in his short period of time, it's amazing what has happened. So I say to you, join with the Urban League and Aaron and Senator Case and Senator Hughes, that we can beat back this virus. We encourage people to wear those masks. We stress to them that we still got a little ways to go. We can't take it for granted. We got to keep working together and to make a difference. So I'm proud to be on this program with you and the Urban League and what you're about. Again, thank you very much.
Congressman Evans, whenever you speak, you just take me somewhere where I almost get teary-eyed. I am so proud as I sit here with the four of you, your sincerity, your love for this state, your love for America, and your love for the Black community. I could not be prouder, and I am so happy to be even part of the four of you. You're simply amazing. And Senator Casey, when Congressman Evans just talked about 30th Street Station, I remember getting a call from your office, and I was right there with you. I stood next to you when you spoke out that this should be called the William Gray train station. I was right there with you, with the media. So, thank you. Now, Senator Hughes, a couple of things. I'm probably on at least 3 calls a week. And here's what all of the calls are about. And it's all different types of people. And so it's about the American Rescue Plan, the American Jobs Plan, the American Families Plan, and then it's talking about the plan and proposed budget from Governor Wolf. So help us to understand that intersection and what we should walk away with it and understand, because there's just a lot of information out there. And I think people need to understand, here's the federal piece, and here is Governor Wolf's proposed budget.
Before we begin, Senator Hughes, before we begin briefly, just wanted to thank Senator Casey for joining us this evening. I know he has another engagement, so he may not be here towards closing. So wanted to just make sure we acknowledge Senator Casey for joining us this evening, and thank you for your commentary.
Thank you, Senator Casey.
Thanks, Thomas. And let me just reiterate that, to thank Senator Casey for who he is as a person and for the incredible work that he's doing. And if he's got another commitment, let him go handle his business, because he is the majority senator, okay? He is the majority senator, and we want him to get some majority business done.
Yes.
Okay? And look, let's be real clear, Andrea.
Yes.
He, you, Congressman Evans, and I, we all work for Aaron Wilson, okay? Everybody works for Aaron, okay? I probably shouldn't have said that, but we all work for Aaron, and that's fine, because we finally have got someone in the White House who has picked up the mantle from President Obama and is taking this to the level that it needs to be taken to with respect to responding to the needs of our people. I want us to be very clear. What we're seeing, urban leaguers and all those who are paying attention, what you are seeing right now out of the White House within the first 100 days is, number one, an administration that looks like America, okay? An administration that looks like America, that incorporates all of the talents from all of the communities and put them in high-level positions to make a difference, number one. But what we are seeing right now is exactly, as the Congressman Evans has said, meeting the moment. We are seeing meeting the moment. We must understand that this is, in terms of what President Biden has already done and what he is proposing with the American Jobs Plan and the American Rescue Plan, this is the greatest movement of capital into regular people's lives since Roosevelt's New Deal, since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. At no level in our time has this kind of investment been made at the people first and then moving up throughout the rest of the economy in all of the areas that make a difference. Aaron just went through the litany of things that the president has and vice president have already gotten done and what they're planning to do. But let's be real clear. I'm gonna make this real plain, okay? Real plain. If you just count the stimulus checks,
Mhm.
if you just count the stimulus money over, and that's not the unemployment compensation money, that's not the tax credit money, that's not the money for state and local governments and school districts. It's just the $1,400 stimmy checks. Okay, all right. In Pennsylvania, that is $15 billion of cash moving into Pennsylvania, not top down, but bottom up. I just talked to a family that before I got onto the Zoom, wife, husband, 3 kids. What'd you get? $7,000. Wife, husband, 3 children, $7,000 to help them deal with the financial realities in their own household, and then to spend that money locally in our own communities. And I would just say parenthetically, anybody who's getting any stimulus money or unemployment compensation checks or child tax credit checks, which I believe start in July, you need to be spending that money in businesses that helped us all during the pandemic. Okay?
Yes.
Don't give that money to these major outlets that didn't do a doggone thing for anybody. All right, but make more money during the pandemic. Spend that money in communities and businesses that care for you. In fact, get a membership to the Urban League. All right.
Yay.
Why don't we start with that? All right. That's not too prolific. Get a membership with the Urban League. But let's be clear about what's been done through the American Rescue Plan. Stimulus checks. $15 billion is essentially half, and Congressman Evans knows this very well, is essentially half of the state's budget. That's how much we're talking about in terms of the amount of money that is moving just in stimulus checks. All right. Cash in people's pockets for stimulus money, cash for healthcare. Very little conversation is going to the fact that there's been a huge expansion in accessibility for the Affordable Care Act, sometimes called Obamacare. Huge expansion in affordability, and people who are marginalized on the sidelines with healthcare problems and healthcare challenges are now have the help available to them through their healthcare situation. Huge amounts of money, over $1 billion in Pennsylvania, and I might be undercounting just by a little bit, just for rental assistance and utility assistance. All right, and that's not, and let's be clear, that's not just for those who have to pay, but I believe it's 80 to 85% of all the landlords, at least in Philadelphia, and it's probably the same across Pennsylvania, are small mom and pop operators. You know, we call it in the neighborhood own onesies and twosies, okay? All right? You know what I'm talking about. You know, and small, 85%. So, and they depended upon those rental checks, all right, to help either pay the note, all right, or pay some other expenses that they may have within their household, all right? Huge money for healthcare, huge money. And so that's just in the American Rescue Plan. When you talk about the American Jobs Plan, and I'm for bipartisanship, I'm all for that. But at some point, the train's got to move out the station. Either you on the train or you not, okay? And if you're not on the train, too bad for you, all right? Get on the train, get a chance to be part of writing some historic legislation. But the American Jobs Plan is not just for roads and bridges and highways, which is all very important, very important. It's for fixing up our crumbling school buildings, all right? Removing the toxic and the lead out of our crumbling school buildings so our children, when they go to school, can go to safe and healthy school buildings. All right. It's for housing and revitalizing the housing stock. And I know Congressman Evans got a lot he wants to talk about with respect to housing, because that's been very, very important to him. It's about broadband and accessibility to technology. It was all laid in bare in front of us when we had to keep our children home for school, and the issues and difficulties we had with respect to making sure that our children could get access to the internet. Well, what'll happen with the American Jobs Plan is that that's going to get taken care of through redefining infrastructure in a broad fashion. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about building things. We're also talking about, Andrea, building lives, the healthcare of people, all right? There's a huge investment in the healthcare and the social and soft services in the American Jobs Plan to help people, because the truth of the matter is, there are more people who are working in that sector than there are in the construction sector.
Right.
5, 6, 7 to 1, if I know my numbers correctly.
Mhm.
And that means we got to take care of the construction side of stuff and fix up everything and build everything. But the human infrastructure is going to be invested in as well. Childcare workers, healthcare workers. We're in it, and Andrew, you saw this past weekend, and Congressman Evans, you saw it as well, on dealing with the pandemic and getting doses in people's arms so we can stop the virus. Okay, what we need to do right now is have people going door to door and asking people to come on out and get this vaccine. And those are jobs. They should be paid at least $15 an hour. All right. So what I'm saying is this, and what everybody's got to understand that's paying attention. We've been dealing with lack for so long, and I'm not going to preach here. Okay. We've been dealing with lack for so long that we don't quite understand or can see when huge opportunity is right in front of us. And what we've got to do is seize that opportunity and make sure that the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan become just as real as the American Rescue Plan. All of that must happen. All of that must happen. Now, what does it mean for Pennsylvania? I just mentioned, and Senator Casey, before you got on, I was talking to Congressman Evans about this. I had him put back his old hat on, corporation hat on, when he was in the House of Representatives. The state of Pennsylvania, because of the American Rescue Plan, because of those stimulus dollars moving into the economy, the state of Pennsylvania's budget surplus right now is $1 billion ahead of the projection that was supposed to be. Now, that is in many respects a structural infusion of capital into the state's economy. And what does that mean? Andrea, the thing that we need to happen most out of Harrisburg is making sure that we maximize as much money as possible going into our schools. We have been dealing with the inequities of school funding for generations, for centuries. Governor Wolf has presented us the opportunity to make a massive change there. We got to seize that opportunity, all right? So that there's no longer a $10,000 difference per child in education funding as in Lower Merion or Upper Dublin, right, or the colonial school districts in Montgomery County as it is in Philadelphia. $10,000 per child difference. $10,000 per child difference. Right. We got to make sure that happens. And the final thing we got to do a lot, but the final thing I want to ask folks to pay attention to is the issue of jobs, job creation, job training, and job preparation. And Andrea, the Urban League has got a long history in that space, okay? Had a bit of an interruption, but we're setting up a moment where you can get back in deep into that space, all right? We've got to prepare our communities for the jobs that are going to be created, the jobs that are currently existing, and the mindset to get ready, get set, and go to work and get paid the income deserving of the dignity that's supposed to exist in every job. I'm suggesting that now is the opportunity. We have all got to double down, triple down. We've got to see those of us who pay attention to this up on a daily basis, got to spread this message out to everyone else who are on this call and ask them to spread it out as well. We have got to make sure that every aspect of the Biden-Harris administration is successful to its fullest extent, because that's the investment that we've been looking for decades. It is finally present in front of us, It is time for us to make it turn this dream, this necessary dream, into a needed reality.
Thank you, Senator Hughes. I'm just going to say amen. I'm telling you, thank you so much. Here's the other piece. I would ask our viewers, our listeners, please, please weigh in with your legislators when it comes to education for the Commonwealth, in terms of making sure that we have the funding that we need. When you heard Senator Hughes say, this is the opportunity of a lifetime right now to get this straight. I'm going to go over there and say, as a civil rights leader, it's systemic racism. We've been talking about this decade over decade over decade. He is absolutely correct when he says in Lower Marion, it's $20,000 per student. For Dr. Height, it's $10,000. This is our opportunity to really invest and give our babies what they need. Everything that we do in life, it starts with home, and then it starts with education. People cannot take your education away from you. It is the beginning of whether or not you're employed. It's the beginning of whether or not you open your own business. It's the beginning of everything you do. We need to take care of our future, and it's the students. So thank you so much. I have to ask you one question, and this is coming from a couple people that sent me a note directly. They said President Biden was intentional about growing the economy from the middle and the bottom and not top down. And they said, is there any repercussions that our taxes will go up in the state of Pennsylvania? Okay. Oh,
Take it off mute.
okay.
Unequivocally, no.
Okay.
Unequivocally, no. I'm gonna say it 3 times.
Okay.
Unequivocally, no.
Perfect. Thomas,
Yes.
we're supposed to end at 3 minutes. So if there's a pressing question, 1 or 2, go ahead. If not, we're going to close and thank folks. Do you have 1 or 2 that you need to ask?
Yes, I do have one.
Okay.
So when we think about all that has been discussed, and we think about the federal plans, the state plans, and families are coming back home, they're watching this feed, and they're going back to their community, they're going back to their loved ones. What should they be talking about? What should they be asking? How should they really be, like, what should they be doing to ensure that, one, they fully understand what's happening, and we will make sure to email these plans to you. But like, what are those hard questions that families should really be thinking about to make sure that they're maximizing this time, that they're really, that they really conceptualize this moment and really understand what this moment means? Because the legislature may not be the same composition in 2022, 2024, things like that. So how should they really internalize all of this?
Vote, vote, voting. Vote, vote, voting.
Yeah.
Very basic. The great John Lewis, who I had the pleasure of serving with him, says, if you see something wrong, do something. And this is that moment. What the senator said, Senator Hughes and Senator Casey, that though we have achieved with the United States Senate being in the majority, those things, there's consequences to voting. So there's a direct connection to voting, to participating. So this is something we should not take. So election day is coming, which is May the 18th. May the 18th. And I understand, Senator Hughes, there's some crazy ballots these people have on, they never want to take away some discretion. And you can explain that, to what's going on.
There's one ballot initiative. I think that there's 3 ballot initiatives. What I would ask folks to say is no, no, yes, okay? The 2 no's deal with the governor's ability to deal with handling a pandemic. The yes, and I know the yes very well because it's my amendment that finally got home, puts the protection against discrimination, race, and ethnicity in the Pennsylvania Constitution, okay? That deserves a yes. So it's no, no, yes. Voting matters, Andrea. Urban League people know this. but
Yes.
voting matters.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If things
Yes.
had gone wrong, if things had gone haywire, okay, on November 3rd and after, all right? If things had gone crazy, do you know the hell that we would be in right now?
Oh my gosh, I can't think about it. I can't.
So voting matters. Now we got to seize the victory
Mhm.
and turn it into reality.
Yes. Thomas, why don't you close us so we can say goodnight? Congressman Evans, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Senator Hughes, thank you for always being there. Thomas, I'll turn
Yeah.
it over to you. to
Not a
close.
problem. Once again, we want to thank Senator Bob Casey. We want to thank Erin Wilson from the White House. We want to thank Congressman Dwight Evans. We want to thank State Senator Vincent Hughes for bringing us this insightful conversation. We want to thank Andrea Custis, President CEO of the Urban League of Philadelphia, for continuing to bring this conversation and demonstrating a level of leadership to meet the moment. We do recognize that all the plans, we're trying to come out of COVID, we're trying to find this new normal, and we have all these plans. And it's really important that we really understand this moment, really understand what's out there. And regardless of where you stand, that as African Americans, this is an opportunity for us to understand the issues, understand legislation, really understand policy, and not get caught up on sound bites. There's so much attention on sound bites, but this is a moment where policy matters. And this is a moment for us to really analyze policy that's coming out of the White House, that's coming out of Harrisburg, to ensure that it supports all of us in our community and allows us to build a legacy that we like for our family. So we want to thank you. For those that registered, we'll make sure to get you resources. We encourage everyone to share this video feed from Facebook to your network through Facebook, because we want to make sure this information gets far and wide. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Hashtag stop the virus. Stay
Stop the
safe.
virus. Thank you.